Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone, episode number 180 for the 31st of March 2012. Richard Saunders here with you from beautiful southern New South Wales along the Murray River, not so far out of Albury. I'm here with my good friend and voiceover man for the Skeptic Zone, Jim Wilshire. Hi, Jim.
Richard, how are you?
I'm well because we just had a fabulous chicken dinner with chips and broccoli, and it was just gorgeous.
Pretty good, wasn't it?
It was damn good. Now, we're standing in your front yard listening to the cockatoos screeching in the background because we're waiting for the imminent arrival and passing overhead of the International Space Station.
The ISS is on its way.
It is, and we're the sun's just set. Jupiter and Venus are bright over there towards the horizon. The moon's sort of not going to cause too much problem. Just see the last glow of the sun, the set sun now. And any minute, as we gaze up towards the heavens, which are looking more heavenly as we gaze, more stars pop out. Now, I must say, this part of the world where you live, somewhat out of Albury, is there's no light pollution.
Absolutely. It's absolutely superb for night viewing, star viewing, stargazing.
You get the full experience of the Milky Way and all the stars brightly lit. It's just makes you realise when you live in the city what you miss when you come here to
and
the countryside.
And of course, the thing that still boggles my mind is that when you look up and look at all the stars, you're seeing a pattern which has never existed, doesn't exist now, and never will.
That's right. So they're astrologers.
And the reason is, of course, because they're moving basically randomly in different directions.
Yeah.
This is different distances.
What we see is a snapshot from our point of view at this particular moment, really.
Well, it's a construction. It's not even a snapshot,
yeah.
It's a construction. But where's the is?
We're still, any minute now, we're within a minute or two of actually, you keep gazing towards the heavens, and I'll let our listeners know that coming up on the Skeptic Zone today, Maynard, good old Maynard, interviews a professor of journalism from Bond University, Mark Pearson, who's written a book called Blogging and Tweeting Without Being Sued. Yes, so, I mean, we're all blogging, we're all tweeting, well, some of us are. If you want to keep tweeting away without being sued, better listen to this interview coming up at the top of the show. Then after the break, we have a report from our friends, our very good friends at Choice Magazine, the consumer's advocate, the watchdog here in Australia. They've recently awarded a good man, Dr Ken Harvey, with their Achievement Award from Choice Magazine, which is the opposite to their Shonkies, which they dish out every year, and a couple of years ago they gave one to the Power Balance people. That's coming up. And also on today's show we have a report from the launch of soap in Albury with our good friend Dr Krissy Wilson. That'll be coming up. Well, Jim,
congratulations on that, Richard, by the way. That was terrific.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you using soap occasionally.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, I was speaking there just last night. Thank you, Jim. Now, let's gaze towards the heavens.
I am.
You are? I'm looking at my watch now, and it should be in view, well, now. Where are you, International Space Station?
Send us a message. Aha!
What? Wait a minute. Now, if we look over towards there, Jim, what's that? Above the tree line, there, coming now.
That's it.
There it is.
That is it.
Appearing from the south direction, sort of the southeast, and we can see this moving light. It's moving much faster than a plane.
Gee, that's doing about 27,000 kilometres an hour, I reckon.
I think so.
It's slightly larger than a football field.
Yes.
Weighs the equivalent of about 450 cars. Quite extraordinary piece of contraption that mankind has built.
We were just
370 kilometres out into space.
We were just briefly looking at the newspaper, because the newspaper alerted us to the fact that if we came out at this time, we should be able to see it. Well, it's about it's a quarter of the way across the sky now from when we first glimpsed it.
It's, to be honest, not quite as bright as I would have expected, but
it's about
its speed is very impressive.
It is. It's about as bright. Oh, it's a little bit brighter than a star, but not very much bigger, is it?
It's supposed to have 6 people in it at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think I can see 2 entire football teams. That is a football pitch. It's not the ISS.
Oh, look, they're waving to us from the...
It's the bright lights.
It's the bright lights.
No, it's the ISS.
It is?
Yes.
I'm sure if we had a decent pair of binoculars or a telescope right now, we could probably make out some details, but it looks like a bright star just shooting across the sky.
Do you think they're making hand signals at us?
They are. I'm sure they listen to the Skeptic Zone every week up there. They must. Hi guys, we're looking at you. When you download this episode, or maybe you upload it when you're in space.
You'd have to.
You'd have to upload it,
or they'd have to be on the other side of the planet.
Now it's roughly now halfway.
It's
across.
banked slightly.
It is. It's doing a U-turn, and it's just about to pass in front of Alpha Centauri.
Well,
there's the Southern Cross, right?
It might go behind.
That would be a good
scary
trick. And for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, the 2 pointers to the Southern Cross, the space station, is just about to pass right between them. Look at that.
Here it comes. Gee, the entire traverse of an arc, which is probably at, 20 degrees or something, maybe not even that, from the horizon, is expected to take about 5 minutes.
And that'd be about right.
So,
that'd be about right. So it's just gone through the Southern Cross, or the pointers of the Southern Cross now, and we're going to be losing sight soon.
I think we're going to lose sight. It's about to go behind the power pole.
Oh no, what can we do? Oh, let's step this way a little bit.
Oh, it blinked. It blinked.
There it is.
For a tick, but there it is.
It's back again, yeah.
That's comforting. What did they actually spend putting it together, Richard?
I wouldn't have a lot of money.
Much?
A lot of dog biscuits. Let's
more
put it
than
that
a smidgen.
A tad more than a smidgen. I'm sure it is.
Maybe 2 tads more, to be honest. No, it's sort of going to go behind the bushes.
Yeah, we're going to lose it behind the trees in the hill in about a minute or less.
Even less, I'd say. It's very impressive, though. And very exciting that it's happening live on this replay of the zone.
It is.
At whatever particular point in time people are replaying it.
Even in 20 years' time.
That's right. Live right now.
Right now, 20 years ago.
Well,
there it goes. I think
goodbye.
We can still see it, but it's just going behind this tree now.
Yes.
And it's off gone into the Pacific Ocean, heading towards North America.
It's either crashed or it's gone behind the trees.
There it goes.
Lovely.
All right.
That was quite splendid.
That was great. Well, Jim, why don't we run inside, have a nice cold bottle of ginger beer, and we'll let our listeners enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Absolutely.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Hey, I just like getting out there and saying whatever I like about whoever I like, whenever I like, on Twitter, online. And Twitter is this amazing thing, people. It's a form of media where you can say whatever you like about anyone you like at any time without any legal recourse. Well, apparently there's someone who thinks this is not the case. And that person's Mark Pearson, journalist and professor of journalism at Bond University, so he knows what he's talking about, and co-author of the quite well-regarded The Journalist's Guide to Media Law, which I read briefly in the bathroom before I came here. And it was correspondent for Reporters Without Borders and has been published in the Wall Street Journal. So you've been sued many times, Mark, have you?
Well, not quite. I had a lawsuit very early in my career, and that taught me a lesson that meant that I had to go across and research this material, and I've basically spent the last 30 years or so doing that.
Well, the book you've got is called Blogging and Tweeting Without Getting Sued, and what you've done well is you've done some good font work here, because as the title gets larger towards the word sued, that is the biggest word on the cover, and that gets your attention if you're a journalist.
Yes, well, the publisher has to take credit for that typography, but it certainly does get the message home. but not just to journalists, to the ordinary blogger. And it's really aimed more at the lay blogger and tweeter, who often goes into this business of publishing, and they don't realise that it's online publishing that they're doing, without understanding the centuries of laws and the hundreds of laws across different jurisdictions that apply to them.
Well, me, Mark Pearson, as I'm always telling the people around me, don't mistake me for a journalist, because I don't wish to be taken seriously. I'm not that kind of person. But whether you're taking seriously or not is in the eye of the beholder, isn't it?
Well, it is, and people need to realise that what they're tweeting or posting to their Facebook pages or writing in their blog can actually have consequences for those that they are writing about. And particularly the area of defamation, which is a law that's been around for centuries, was really only of concern to media outlets until this social media revolution. And now ordinary citizens are getting sued because other people don't like what they've been saying about them.
Look, and one of the things you've got to realise straight away is that you've got a worldwide jurisdiction to look after whenever you say something potentially about anyone. So how can anyone cover that? Well,
I found a lot of difficulty myself. In fact, it's impossible even in a small book like that to go into detail into the various laws that control publishing throughout the world. So all I've been able to do is scratch the surface and give people an idea of some of the basic principles behind it. I think the main thing with the ordinary blogger or social media user is to know when the alarm bells are ringing, so that A, they can sort of hold back and not rush to press that publish button, and B, to know when to seek legal advice. That's the most important thing, and it's better to be getting such advice before the event rather than when you've received the defamation writ.
Well, let's go through a couple of statements here that I might put on a tweet or you might read or something like that. If you tweeted or wrote publicly, "My boss is an idiot." Now, is that defamatory, or because we don't know who my boss is or whether my boss is a particular person? I could have a couple. It could be, my spouse. Is that something that would be defamatory?
Well, on the face of it, it certainly is defamatory, and not just your boss, but someone else who can show that people thought you were talking about them. So maybe if you have 2 or 3 bosses, then the others that you didn't even intend to defame may well take action against you. So on the face of it, without further explanation, there could be a defence that's available to you, but that's what you'd need to really research before pressing that button. That'd
be interesting in court then, because you'd have to then prove that this said or person was or wasn't an idiot. You'd then have to that would be. Is there any case that's come up that's as cut and clear as that?
Yes. In fact, the former RSL leader in Victoria, Bruce Ruxton, actually used that expression about a former politician. And that case went all the way to the High Court, where he'd written that this politician was an idiot. Luckily, in that case, the High Court held that he was expressing a political opinion, which they felt was actually protected under a very special constitutional defence. But all that's too technical. I certainly wouldn't be relying on that unless you had some very good legal advice and a really good bankroll of legal resources available to you.
All right, so you probably couldn't say Maynard sucks.
Well, Maynard, that may well be true.
Yeah, that's true. They say his work is shonky and below par. Frankly, he sucks. I go, well, fair cop, really. Truth is a defence, after all. Yeah,
there is a defence called honest opinion or fair comment, which allows you to come to a negative conclusion about somebody, in your opinion, based on provable facts along the way. So, in other words, you've got to build up an argument on provable facts to demonstrate that your opinion, it might be an extreme opinion about someone, is justifiable.
I always think humour should be a defence. Like if I said that Julia Gillard is really a man, it's obviously an absurd statement and she's a public figure. Could I go to court for that?
Well, indeed you could, or you could be sued over such a statement. Unfortunately, the courts don't always have as good a sense of humour as we might hope.
And I didn't think they had any sense of humour. I don't think I've ever seen a judge. I've never seen a judge at a stand-up comedy gig.
The law doesn't specifically, in Australia at least, it doesn't specifically protect satire. And so it's one thing to be, in a comedic situation, but it's another to actually be being satirical about someone and saying things that appear truthful, but they're really tongue-in-cheek. Judges have shown traditionally they don't have much of a sense of humour there, and they have to basically guess what the ordinary reasonable person would think about that. It was a classic case where some very satirical comments were made about the former politician Pauline Hanson in Queensland in the form of a recording that was being played on the ABC's Triple J by a satirist. And Pauline Hanson went to the Court of Appeal in Queensland.
And gosh, that was hilarious, that track.
Yes, yeah, you remember it.
Oh, the Pauline Pants Down track, yes.
Yeah, that's still subject, as I understand it, it's still subject to an injunction which stops that being broadcast, because the court held that it was defamatory and didn't share that satirist's sense of humour.
And what about retweeting? There's a good chapter you've got in your book about hosting the words of others. Now, if a newspaper quotes someone or reruns a story from another newspaper, they're equally libelous in this country. Is that the case with a retweet?
Well, that's yet to be determined by the courts. And the thing is, when you retweet something, if it is defamatory, if it's highly defamatory of someone else, and you've got 140 characters in Twitter to play with, so you could say something very, very nasty. We know a few words in the language that we might say about somebody that is particularly scathing and highly defamatory. Well, a retweet with those words you would be republishing them. So basically, by retweeting, even though you might say you don't endorse with retweets, if those bare words are so defamatory of somebody else, then you have republished them. And if you're an easier target to find for the person that's been defamed, if you're perhaps wealthier or you're more easily identified as the person that's republished them, then they might go for you rather than the original tweeter.
Who may have a better legal team.
May have a better legal team or may not be as easily found because they may have used various devices, anonymity or whatever, to escape identification.
Now, what high-profile test cases have we had for blogging? I imagine there's been a few, and Twitter in Australia.
Well, we've had a few. Most of them haven't worked their way all the way through the courts. We had one where a West Australian businessman was defamed fairly badly on basically an online bulletin board about the company and the operations and his own performance. And that was done by an anonymous commentator. But his lawyers got on the job and managed to do various searches, and through IP, Internet Protocol numbers and so on, they managed to identify who this person was, and he finished up having to pay about $40,000 in defamation payments.
Okay, that's a pretty penny.
Yeah, and we've also recently had that Marika Hardy case where apparently she's had to settle out of court over wrongly accusing someone of being her online stalker. We've had various ones where there have been very serious threats of defamation action. The editor-in-chief of the Australian newspaper threatened a journalism academic who had been tweeting a conference almost 18 months ago now, and she had quoted a former reporter saying certain things, and the editor-in-chief of the Australian wrote a very serious legal letter threatening defamation action. Well, I understand that didn't unfold. The action wasn't pursued, but nevertheless, it sent a very scary message to that particular academic.
Well, because that's where it can get really... that's where I've seen some of the nastiest stuff, is when people are blogging a live event. It's almost like they just want to heckle you. It's like they want to score points on you for the sake of scoring points because they're in the room and they can say stuff you can't see.
Yeah, I think it's a very dangerous practice having what's called a live Twitter feed.
Yeah, why would you do that? You're just asking for trouble.
In the very conference where the audience can see the Twitter feed, there are so many dynamics that come into play. I've been in conferences where this happens, and it really is a distraction in some ways, and the people who are in the audience tweeting start to take on, the role of the people that are meant to be running the show, or the panelists, or the speaker, and quite often it's a distraction, and quite often it's a very negative force in the room.
Oh, just like the tweets on Q&A. One of the reasons I don't watch the show is because there's people just saying stuff, and they're just saying it to be funny, which is okay, but it comes up the bottom there, and it can often distract from what's the argument that's going, the rather, erudite argument that's going on the screen gets distracted by something completely frivolous. But then again, maybe that's why people like it.
Yeah, Maynard, I disagree with you there.
Hang on. Ring the bell. We've got to fight. You disagree? You think that makes the show, you reckon?
I enjoy the Q&A Twitter feed, and there is some important differences there. What I was talking about was basically a Twitter feed going on during a conference, which is basically unmoderated, whereas at least the Q&A one is moderated. There's someone at the ABC sifting through hundreds, perhaps thousands of tweets going on as that program is being broadcast, selecting the ones they see as most pertinent. So you have basically a separate entertainment channel going on in the bottom half of the screen.
See, I would debate your use of the word pertinent.
Well, we're talking about satire earlier, and some of them clearly fall into that category.
That's true. And also, it is Mark Scott's one of his favourite shows, so I don't think you'll ever see a problem with it.
And to his credit, he's a very active Twitter user, and not just in promoting the ABC's programming, but he often has some very insightful comments there.
Yeah, I got to say, who is your most favourite? You said you like Mark Scott there, and he's probably one of the guys that's in the middle of what's going on. Who's your favourite Twitter person in Australia?
In Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't use Twitter much in that way, Maynard. I use it as a professional research tool. So my favourite tweeps, we call them, Twitter friends, are actually people that would be quite boring probably to your audience because they are tweeting on media law issues, and social media law, which is my area of expertise. I don't use Twitter as a social private vehicle. I use my Facebook page for that. So I've got a very clear division between the two. And so I wouldn't dare to mention a favourite tweet in my area of media law because I'd be upsetting too many of the others who I follow.
See, I think that's very telling, Mark Pearson. Like, here you are, the journalist, professor of journalism at Bond University, and you don't use Twitter in a way like, you're very, very careful with it. And I think that is a warning to the rest of us.
Well, it may well be. People do these things in their own way and make their own decisions. I've actually found it all a little confusing early on in Twitter, with people sort of, on the one hand, sometimes saying they're having coffee or a nice meal or chatting with friends, and on the other hand, saying something quite significant that I find useful for my work. So I decided very early on to maintain this separate guise, this journ law guise, as my Twitter account, and or handle, as it's called in Twitter, and only tweet on media law, press freedom, social media law, those sorts of topics.
Look, and one of the questions I wanted to ask you in regard to the Australian Skeptics is there's a lot of ongoing debates between the Australian Vaccination Network and the Australian Skeptics, or the Australian Skeptics and all these people, and I've seen a lot of very heated debate going back and forth. And at times I've thought, ooh, that's a bit much from both sides. Is there a quick way to avoid getting yourself in trouble when you get in this back and forth kind of debate?
Well, I've got to make it clear that I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give legal advice.
Yeah, that's right. He only plays one on TV occasionally, people. He's not a real lawyer.
No, but as a journalist, I would suggest if people stick to the topic, often in sport we have the expression about playing the ball rather than the man. And if people stick to the ball, basically the topic that is being debated in the public arena, they're going to be pretty safe. It's when they venture into personal characteristics, they personalise their attack, they bring in material from left field that they can't prove. So if skeptics are talking about an issue like vaccinations and they are talking about the data that's involved and they're engaging in debate and perhaps very heated debate with the individuals from a different viewpoint, then they're going to be pretty safe. But as soon as they start talking about that individual and their private life, or perhaps alleging that they've misused finances or they're negligent in their work, these sorts of things, then that's when they're going to be on shaky ground.
Now, shaky ground you can find yourself on pretty easily is the case in your book of Paul Chambers in the UK, where he ran foul of the terror laws there. I imagine we have similar ones here in Australia, but basically he was just making a joke because he was late for a flight or the airport was snowed in, and he said, if that isn't fixed within a week, I'm going to blow up the airport. And most people would take that at face value and not think that he was going to blow up the airport as a joke.
Yes, well, like I said earlier, the authorities don't always have the same sense of humour, and we live in an international era of high national security counter-terrorism operations, and if there's one thing I'd suggest to all of your listeners is never joke about those sorts of things. And what he did, he made that mistake. The authorities took it seriously because when someone is threatening to blow up an airport, there's not necessarily a 100% chance it's a joke. So he was suddenly arrested, charged. He was in awful legal trouble. I understand he's gone through an appeal process since then, but nevertheless he faced all sorts of legal costs and consequences that was just, for the moment, at the time, just seemed to be a funny little joke he was sharing with his Twitter followers.
But to a judge, wouldn't it seem that if you were actually going to blow up an airport, you would not tweet to people that you were going to blow up an airport?
Yes, I think the courts and the authorities want to send a very clear message to the community that this isn't something that is meant to be joked about. And also, from their point of view, I suppose they don't want their time taken up with people joking about these things when there's the real battle to be fought there against actual terrorists who have such plans.
And one of the real situations we find on Twitter and with blogs as well is people impersonating other people. One of my favourite one of my favourite Twitter accounts in Australia is the fake Paul Keating. It can be pretty ribald at times, much as Paul himself could be, and it does make some interesting political points. But when you get your fake Julie Gillard there, you've got fake everybody. Now, I notice there's a law in Arkansas that was passed in 2009 against this specific thing, but is there a problem with impersonating other people as there is in real life?
Well, there certainly can be. A lot of these things are taken as purely satirical, and even the real people for whom the fake account has been set up take it as a joke and understand that most of the people reading it would never even think it was really them writing it. So the thing with these fake identities is that normally in the descriptor on the person's gravatar, their handle for the account, it does say that they are not the real person. You get into trouble if you are actually genuinely pretending to be that person, basically impersonating someone else. And that breaches both the rules of Facebook and Twitter, and so they can actually suspend your account if someone complains about that. But it also might break a whole range of rules within the country that you're operating to do with people's, well, in the US it's often called personality rights, and there's within Australian copyright law there are moral rights where people have entitlement to represent material, works, words under their own guise, because and even have right to take action against those falsely using their identity.
And two last questions, which get to the core of the matter. What is the first step you should take if you feel you've been wronged?
Well, the first thing you would do would be to take legal advice to find out whether you actually have been wronged. But
you shouldn't go to the person themselves and say, "Look, I'd like an apology." You shouldn't do.
What I was going to say is, as a free expression advocate, I think these things can normally be resolved without lawyers being involved. So my first step would be to complain to whoever it is that said it, ask them to apologise, ask them to issue a correction. And if they're not willing to do that, then perhaps to consider some legal advice to pursue the matter further.
And what should you do when you're the one you think, I've stuffed up, or you've received a complaint?
Well, if you've received a complaint and there's any threat of legal action whatsoever, I'd be getting legal advice instantly. If it's not a threat of legal advice, then I would be also engaging in, some sort of alternative dispute resolution with the person involved to try to assuage them so that they don't take that step.
It's interesting, you write in your book that the first thing you might want to do is apologise, but maybe that's not what you should do, first of all, you write in your book.
Yes, well, the trouble with apologies and corrections and retractions is that the legal advice is really necessary before you do these sorts of things, because sometimes it can ruin a legal defence to have done so. So, for example, a defence that it was your honest opinion or your fair comment where you were criticising someone, if you've retracted that and said you didn't really mean to say it, in some places you'd lose the defence, because how can you have an honest opinion if you didn't mean to say it? So we're starting to get a little bit technical legally here. So all I'm saying is, an apology like, I'm sorry this made you upset, rather than I'm sorry I was wrong, I didn't mean to say it, particularly if you actually did mean to say it, you might be on better ground. But under Australian law, there's some very, very technical and strict requirements of offers of amends and apologies, and so they really need to be negotiated through a lawyer.
Look, Mark Pearson from Bond University, Professor of Journalism. And what is the one thing your students ask you the most often?
They ask me whether they are really publishers when they're using social media. They just can't believe it. And they can't believe that their work might be going to 600 or more jurisdictions throughout the world. So it takes a lot for them to understand that just the smallest tweet can actually be a publication with legal consequences.
And the quick answer to, am I a bit worried about this, is to maybe take some time. Don't do it instantly. If you're reacting to something, take time before you tweet.
Don't react. Sleep on it. While Twitter is an instant medium and it's really cool to be seen to be right on top of a topic, getting it wrong or doing damage to somebody else in a whole range of ways is far too great a risk to take. Sit back, take a deep breath, go and have a cup of coffee, think about what you really want to write, and only then, after calming down a little, might you write something a little more tempered.
Mark Pearson, author of Blogging and Tweeting Without Getting Sued. I'm actually reading the font because it gets bigger there. A very useful book, and hopefully it'll avoid someone ending up in court in the near future. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Maynard.
This is Carrie Poppy.
I'm Ross Blotcher.
Oh, hey, Ross.
Hey, we're from a podcast called
Oh No, Ross and Carrie.
We find out what happens when you show up and ask questions.
We've hung out with the Kabbalists.
The Mormons.
We've gone and gotten ear candles.
Gone to the Sikhs.
We show up so you don't have to.
So find out where we're going next.
We'll even have special episodes where we have famous guests like Brian Dalton from Mr. Deity.
You heard that awesome theme music? He wrote that.
You should come visit us at onopodcast.com or
facebook.com/onrack.
What the hell's OnRack, Ross?
ONRAC.
Oh no, Ross and Carrie.
That's our show.
That's so smart. Come join us.
Choice exists to unlock the power of consumers, and we do that by providing expert information, advice and support to our members. And where necessary, we will intervene in markets to campaign for the consumer interest as well. Nearly 100% of our income is derived from our members, and that allows us to be able to speak out without fear or favour. We are 100% independent in what we say and in what we do. Twice a year, we hold awards. Firstly, the Shonkies, which showcase the very worst products and services in Australia. But secondly, and today, you will see the Choice Awards, some of the very best products and services available, and they are truly exceptional to pass the choice test.
Dr Ken Harvey is one of Australia's leading experts in public health. He's a fierce champion for the rights of consumers, in particular around dodgy health products that are more spin than cure. So it will come as no surprise that Ken is our consumer champion for 2012. Let's hear from Ken in his own words about the work that he's done and the work that he continues to do on behalf of consumers.
Back in the, I think it was the late 70s, I was involved with the World Health Organization on ethical criteria for medicinal drug promotion, and ethical promotion is part of national drug policies and World Health Organization drug policies. And so I've always had an interest in that. And if I see promotion that I think is not in accord with ethical criteria, and there's a variety of codes of conduct and therapeutic goods advertising codes, then I send in complaints on the grounds that someone should do it, and hence my reputation as a serial complainant, which I think I'm quite proud of, actually. Just early this year, I succeeded in getting a $40,000 fine out of a company for inappropriately promoting a prescription drug to the general public. Unethical promotion, no matter whether it's directed to doctors or consumers, is basically trying to get irresponsible prescribing or consumption habits of drugs. It's trying to delude either the doctors or consumers that a product's got virtues that in fact it hasn't got. The principles of the system are good. I mean, there is a good therapeutic advertising code based on the World Health ethical criteria. There's a good independent complaint resolution panel, which I think produces good determinations, albeit they're overloaded. The problem is complaint resolution panel's got no power. If they can, and they do, send non-compliance to the Therapeutic Goods Administration, which ultimately is the final regulator, the TGA then could institute criminal proceedings. In practice, they have never, ever done so. The TGA is a paper tiger, and that most people, most sponsors can get away with unethical advertising. So clearly, if you have a system with no penalties, the cowboys are going to take advantage of it, and that's what's happened. There's been a succession of weight loss complementary medicines that have been scams, basically advertised out of all proportion to their efficacy. And the census was a classic. I mean, it was said to be the largest world clinical trial, wonderful claims. You could lose weight while you sleep, for example. The trial was fabricated and never existed. And it was just a reflection of really the laxity of the Australian system. Again, I don't believe the TGA takes these concerns seriously enough. It's a scandal, but the government doesn't seem to want to do much about it. I say I used to treat patients, now I treat governments. They're a lot sicker and a lot harder to treat, but someone's got to do it. The TGA needs civil penalties rather than criminal penalties that can be easily applied and which will bite and hurt. They haven't got those at the moment. And again, the Complaint Resolution Panel needs them also. I'd encourage people, if they think that something on television doesn't look right, if the claims seem to be too good to be true, they probably are too good to be true, the Complaint Resolution Panel can be found on the website. There's an online complaint form. Again, if they felt that they wanted help, then there are people available, and I'm one of them that will help consumers to properly formulate a complaint. Choice, with a bit of encouragement from others, has finally, after 5 months, got out of the TGA a list of properly evaluated, registered complementary medicines, which went up on the TGA website just this week. Choice, I think, is a crucial organisation. It's not the only organisation working on consumer health issues, but Choice is totally independent, and that principle of independent assessment is crucial. It's what I'm on about pharmaceuticals, the need. Equally well, the fact that Choice have recognised that it's not enough just to test products. If you find that products are consistently having problems, that's a policy issue, and there's a need to have a policy arm. And again, Choice have had and do have policy officers that can work on the larger issues. Choice were one of the first bodies, the Australian Consumers Association. They set up Consumers International. Consumers International set up Health Action International, which works with people like me in the region. So they've had a significant influence in terms of both medicinal drug policy, consumer betterment.
Hey guys, this is Jay from the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, and whoa, hold on, whoa! Everybody knows I'm the only reason to listen to the freaking show, right? I mean, if it was up to me, the show would start with this. Yeah, boy! Well, Rebecca would hate that, probably, but, I mean, I'd rock that. Listen to our show and you can learn about cool stuff like a technological singularity, which is someday when technology progresses so fast that it would make the Industrial Revolution look like a kid's science project. Anyway, come check us out at www.theskepticsguide.org and get your science on!
here in Albury, Wodonga, which is sort of between New South Wales and Victoria. In fact, it's on the border, isn't it?
We are on
Dr.
the border.
Krissy Wilson.
Almost exactly on the border. We're about a kilometre from the border.
It's our roving reporter for the Skeptic Zone, Dr. Krissy Wilson. I've flown down here to help you launch SOAP. What is SOAP?
SOAP stands for the Science of Anomalistic Phenomena. Ooh. And for 4 years now, I have been waiting to launch SOAP. But here is absolutely the right place to do it. This is regional New South Wales, and it's just perfect. So SOAP, the Science of Anomalistic Phenomena, is a new research unit where I am going to be taking on various studies, various research projects, getting lots of local people involved so that we can explore and investigate the science of belief, the psychology of belief, why people believe in weird and wonderful things.
Fantastic, fantastic. And tomorrow night is the big night.
It is indeed.
Stand up on your soap box?
I am. I can have all my little soap suds around me.
Soap suds? Which is the name of it when people subscribe, isn't it? They're going to be called soap suds?
If you want to be a friend of soap, if you want...
Clean up your act.
If you want to clean up your act...
clean up your act with soap.
You can become a soap sud.
Oh, dear.
Tim Mendham, wonderful editor of The Skeptic, he emailed me and he said, you can have lots of lovely headlines like watch out psychics, Krissy's coming with the soap. So, if you want to be a soap sud, then you can join the mailing list and be a friend of soap.
All right, what we're going to do now is you were on TV a little bit earlier today on the local news.
Yep.
So we're just going to play the audio of that, and then we'll, by the magic of podcasting, we'll actually be at the launch.
Absolutely.
After this little clip. So here's you now, a little clip from local television.
We all know stories of ghosts, aliens and psychics. But have you ever asked yourself if you're a skeptic or a believer? Well, a new research group will be launched at Charles Sturt University to find out why people believe in the paranormal and why some of us are more susceptible to believing.
Is the truth really out there? Or is it just our minds playing tricks? While many believe in the world of paranormal activity, others remain firmly unconvinced.
What most people don't realise is that our cognitive abilities constantly let us down. So we see things we haven't seen, we hear things we haven't heard, we even remember events that didn't even take place.
Dr Wilson, who has taught psychology in London and Tasmania, is setting up a research unit into the subject. She's looking for reasons why people believe in the weird and wonderful and will be enlisting the help of locals to do so.
But I also want to do some experimental stuff. Since I've been here, I've become aware of the fact that there are lots and lots of really spooky houses in the area, spooky buildings.
Dr Wilson hopes to take her research to places like the former Beechworth Asylum and Monte Cristo homestead at Junee. The research group will be launched tomorrow night with locals encouraged to come along.
If you disagree with me, if you think I'm on the wrong track, if you've got some fantastic stories to tell us, then come along tomorrow night.
The launch will be at CSU from 6 p.m. Danielle Goody, Prime 7 News.
Well, I'm here at the launch of SOAP, and stagger me, blow me down. Who's walked in? None other than voiceover man Jim Wilshire. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Richard. How are you?
I'm really well, really excited to be here to help launch SOAP.
I'm really looking forward to hearing you.
Are you? Yes. I'm looking forward to speaking to you.
Well, I'm seeing you, and you're speaking to me. It's happening. And we're early.
We are a little bit early, but the crowd's moving in, which is nice to see. The auditorium here at the university's filling up. So, and I'm lucky enough after this heading out to your property for a few relaxing days by the Murray River.
It'll be absolutely wonderful to have you again.
Thank you. Looking forward to it, Jim. Oh, well, let's find our seats and enjoy getting soapy.
Thank you, Richard.
So, first of all, a very, very warm welcome to you all. Welcome to CSU. Welcome to CSU, to our gorgeous campus here in Albury, and welcome to the launch of SOAP. SOAP stands for the Science of Anomalistic Phenomena. Now,
Animalistic is something completely different. Okay? So, very warm welcome to the launch of SOAP. Now, as you may know, having read the programme notes, SOAP is a brand new research unit that is going to be dedicated to investigating claims of the paranormal and all kinds of related extraordinary phenomena. Okay, so my area of research then is called anomalistic psychology. Now, it's not to be confused with what you've probably heard of before, parapsychology. Now, the image of a parapsychologist tends to drum up the idea of a sort of Bill Murray type character from Ghostbusters, some kind of wacky funster who spends most of his weekends in haunted houses looking for ectoplasm. That's not what I do. Well, actually, I have done that a fair bit, actually, usually for dodgy TV programmes in the UK. But I'm what's called an anomalistic psychologist. So it's very much looking at claims of the paranormal from a psychological and, in some cases, physiological point of view. My next guest needs no introduction, but I'm going to. You'll all know him, I'm sure, those of you that have seen Channel 7's programme, Australia's search for its most gifted psychic, The One. I suggested to the producers of The One what they might like to call their second series. I suggested Australia's search for its biggest number 2. But they didn't go with it. So, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Richard Saunders.
Thank you, Dr. Krissy. I won't use the microphone because I'm going to go around a lot and do a few demonstrations. I am the so-called skeptical judge for The One. I've been involved in skepticism now pretty full-on for about 13 years. I'm a member of the Australian Skeptics. I'm a vice president. I'm a life member of the Australian Skeptics. They awarded me some time back. I am also a fellow for the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry in the United States, a group set up by James Randi, Carl Sagan, Isaac Asimov, amongst other people. I love travelling the world to investigate mysteries and go to big meetings of like-minded people. I'm so delighted to come here once again to be Krissy, an old friend, and to see her launch. So I've got to be careful not to trick myself. That's why we do very careful tests of whatever the claim is. But you're right, science is all about discovering new things.
That's just like my biggest thing. I don't believe in it fully. I do believe in aspects of it because there are things that we can see and hear and we still don't know how they're coming in.
Yeah, but they're not paranormal. They're just things that science is still working out. They'll be natural features of it, I'm sure. The beauty in reality in nature is far more exquisitely exciting and wonderful than we can imagine. What's really out there? Planets and stars and nebulas and creatures at the bottom of the ocean. We don't need to gild the lily, we don't need to make up ghosts and monsters and strange beasts. It doesn't even come close to the wonderful beauty of what's really there. And we know what's really there because of science. It's just wonderful.
Okay, ladies and gents, I think it's drinking time, don't you? Could we thank Richard and Anthony, please?
This is Ben Radford. I'm Deputy Editor of Skeptical Inquirer Science Magazine, author of 6 books, including Tracking Chupacabra, and you can find out more about me at benjaminradford.com.
Well, thank you for listening to The Skeptic Zone, and thanks for joining us for that very exciting little encounter we had with the International Space Station a while ago. Coming up soon on The Skeptic Zone, lots more interviews. I think we've got a think tank coming up because lots of people request that we have a think tank. Thank you to all the listeners who said hello to me while I've been visiting Albury, and very nice comments saying how much you enjoy listening to The Skeptic Zone. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from the banks of the beautiful Murray River, southern New South Wales, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.